So once again, my name is Howard Cooper. I'm with Sterling B2B Group, and what we're going to be going through today is some processing basics and strategies to reduce your processing costs in the next 30 days. I do want to welcome the B2B CFO group and the DRMA group on the call. Once we go through the complete webinar at the end, we'll have a Q&A. So first and foremost, I've been doing credit card processing for better than 15 years with a couple different companies. I've worked in the credit card processing world primarily in B2B payments for the last 10. So there's not much I have not been exposed to. One of the reasons why we're doing this is most of the B2B merchants that we speak to leave money on the table. And in most cases, they're paying, quite frankly, 20 to 40% more than they need to. One of the main reasons is because they don't know the whole story. They've been misinformed. In some cases, they're improperly set up. And quite frankly, their current merchant services company are not keeping them up to speed on the rule changes. In the last 4 years, there's been over 50 adjustments to the way you should be handling business and commercial cards. And we hear this all too often that when we talk to a new merchant, a new prospect, they have no idea. So another reason why companies leave money on the table is these rules of engagement change, sometimes twice a year. So not just the adjustments in how you should be handling the cards, but the actual rules, change on the card types. There are new cards that are issued, and in most cases, what we find is a lot of these issues can be easily fixed. So what we look at are companies who are improperly set up. Oftentimes it's using a credit card terminal when you key in transactions. You're accepting business or purchasing cards but don't know what level 2 and 3 is. And then last but not least, you have an ERP system that really doesn't give you the ability to get the cheapest rate. So these are all things that we look at. On the screen, you're going to see just an example of how things are changing. In the last 4 years, what I'm showing you these are the main Visa B2B interchange categories. 4 years ago, we had 6 categories that were considered business to business on Visa. 4 of those, or I should say 2 of those, are no longer available. They're gone. The purchase card and commercial card B2B went from 2.1%, and now it's replaced with, that same category, is now replaced with 2.65%. And the CNP stands for card not present. So if you did nothing in the last 4 years, you haven't made any updates, the cards that you were accepting that used to go to purchase or commercial B2B are now costing you 55 points. There are 2 new categories, business B2B and business signature business and business enhanced. They were cards that were issued that you're now accepting that are going to 2.4 and 2.25%. And then there are 2 additional card types way back in 2011 that didn't change, but those are the minority of the transactions. The fewest amount of cards go to those 2 categories. So once again, without any adjustments, you're paying more money and don't realize it. To obtain a less expensive rate, you have to get to level 3. And with level 3 transactions, it means that you're qualifying specific card types by passing a little bit more information. Those purchase cards and commercial cards will go to level 3. As I said, those are the ones that are going to 2.65%. So if you look at your credit card statement, let's assume that you're going through another merchant services provider and you want to identify if you're getting level 3 or not. The easiest way to look is you look for 2 things. Under MasterCard, look for the term data rate 1. If you see data rate 1 and you're not seeing data rate 3 on MasterCard, you're not getting level 3. On Visa cards, you look for either purchase or commercial card, and you're looking for purchase level 3. If you don't see that and it's going to card not present, you're not getting credit. purchase and commercial card, level 3, is 1.85%. And those are for taxable or non-taxable transactions. So there's 80 basis points of opportunity. So once again, look for that on your current credit card statement. In most cases, the Visa transactions account for 65 to 70% of what you accept. So it could be a fair amount of money. When we talk about enhanced data, and I talked about level 3, there's level 1 information, which is the basic stuff. That's what everyone puts through. Name, transaction amount, the zip code, that kind of stuff. There's level 2 information, which once again, in most cases, a credit card terminal, a virtual terminal, or an ERP system can pass that through. We're looking for the additional level 3 information. Level 3, there's 2 ways to do it. Everybody in the industry knows that, and when I say everyone in the industry, I'm talking about merchant services companies and the software companies. They all do, if they're getting level 3, they all do line item. We are the only organization, the only company in the United States, from a processing standpoint, that has automated summary level 3. This information is not necessary. You don't have to give us any more information than what you do today, and based on all the categories and the card information you're passing through to us, we have enough data on our side to qualify the transactions for level 3 without any more work from you. So regardless of what you're using, if we support the system, we'll get you to level 3 summary level. So let me talk about, and this screen here is explaining based on 2 different transactions. Let's put it dollars and cents. If you're accepting, and if you're not getting level 3, and you're accepting a purchase or commercial card on Visa, and you're not passing enough information, the transaction is going to go through at 2.95% and 10 cents. So if it's a $1,000 transaction, you're paying $29.60. On a $15,000 transaction, you're paying $442. That's cost. That's the amount that's paid to the issuing bank. Okay, we are able, with our technology, to get to level 3. Okay, without, once again, any more information on your side. We're getting down to 1.85. So on a $1,000 transaction, we're saving you $11. On a $15,000 transaction, there's $150. That's a full percent, over 1% less. That's real money. So just understand, the more information you pass through, the less expensive it costs. So work with your merchant services provider. If you can't do, if you can't do summary level and you have to do line item, which most of these companies are doing, work with them to get to level 3. If it's a challenge and you can't get there, we have the alternative, which is summary level 3. So these are just stair steps down of different information. So let me give you the first tip. The first tip in reducing your costs is identifying if you fall into a B2B SIC code. The importance of the business-to-business SIC codes, especially for Visa, means that you don't have to enter any additional information and you get to a less expensive rate. So for example, those 4 categories listed, signature business, business enhanced, and then these 2, signature preferred and business card B2B. If you're in a B2B SIC code, which we're going to show you here in a minute, but if you're in an SIC code that is considered Visa B2B, you will qualify your transactions at a less expensive rate. These 4 categories don't go to level 3. The best you can do is a Visa B2B rate. So this is the cheapest you can get on Visa business cards. If you qualify, once again, and you're not in a B2B SIC code, talk to your merchant services provider and make sure they put you in one. Okay? Oftentimes companies will qualify from more than one SIC code. So this is something that you have to identify if you fit, and if you do, ask your merchant services provider to put you in that specific SIC code. Without qualifying there, you might be stuck paying 2.95% for all your transactions in Visa Business. And quite frankly, that's money left on the table. Here are the Visa SIC codes. So I'm not sure if you want to jot all these down. We are going to be able to send this out to you. This is something that your merchant services provider should be able to qualify you under if you are a B2B entity, meaning you are selling to other businesses. Okay? And once again, if they can put you in a B2B SIC code for Visa business transactions, you'll get the least expensive rate. So that's tip number one. Tip number two, and this can be employed across any business, whether you're business to business, card not present, retail. If you key in a transaction, in 2015 the rules changed. Most merchant services providers didn't tell you anything because ultimately it's an opportunity for them to make more money. The platform you should be on is interchange pass-through. It's called Cost Plus. That's what most companies are on. Visa now requires address verification to be performed on all key transactions, on all non-face-to-face transactions, if you're in a B2B SIC code. So what that means is, if you're not, pardon me, in a B2B SIC code. So what that means is, I'm going to go back. If you don't qualify for one of these, and your card not present, and you don't do address verification, you don't do that zip code search, okay? So you key a card in, it goes through your credit card terminal, it prompts you for a zip code, and you just hit enter and bypass it. And once again, you're not qualifying for one of these. The transaction is going to go to the most expensive rate on the grid, which is 2.95%. So tip number two, and let me make sure you understand, if you are keying in a transaction, whether you're in a B2B SIC code or not, on Visa or MasterCard, it doesn't matter. Key in a zip code to do address verification. AVS stands for Address Verification Service. It sends the zip code, and if you put in the numerical value of the address, it'll prompt you for that as well, but that's not necessary. But address verification verifies that the billing zip code matches what you're entering. And what's important on a business card is you have to submit a zip code to get credit for looking it up, for actually running AVS. So ultimately, you want the billing zip code to match what the issuing bank has on file. If you do, once again, it's going to save you money. So if you don't put it in, you're likely leaving 50 to 70 points on the table. So address verification is a requirement now. Here's the impact. These are the four categories, once again, on Visa, that if you don't put anything in or you bypass that zip code, it could cost you up to 2.95%. That's if you don't have tax. Now, let's assume that you don't have tax and your card not present, you put the zip code in, you're going to pay a little bit less. And if you do charge tax, so you enter tax in if it prompts you, and you enter a zip code as it's required now, that's a much cheaper rate. So in some cases, it's almost a full percent once again. So let me just make sure you understand. I'm going to go back here. Enter a zip code on every keyed transaction, whether you need it or not, and always try to match, okay? Meaning that there's going to be a little code that comes out on your receipt that says AVS response. If you don't see a W, X, Y, or Z, it doesn't match, and it might cost you more money. So the tip number two is, anytime you key in a transaction, if it prompts you for a zip code, put it in. If it prompts you for tax, and there's a tax amount you have to enter it. Meaning that if this is a taxable transaction, enter the tax, just report it, and send it through the system. It'll save you money. One thing you can do on credit card terminals, and it's a nice little feature, and oftentimes we find other merchant services companies don't do this, is you can have your merchant services company add the feature on your credit card terminal to always prompt you for tax. So if you charge it, put it in. If you charge tax on a transaction, add it into the transaction itself. It's going to save you money. And once again, we said it'll save 90 basis points. So the to-do here is ask your merchant services provider to add that prompt to enter tax in. And that's something that they should be able to do a quick download if you're using a credit card terminal. If you're using a virtual terminal, it's a matter of just adding the tax field and entering that information. And what you could do is you make it a required field. So, and then last but not least, here's the overview on the three. Number one, verify your SIC code. Make sure if you qualify for B2B that you're entering in the B2B, you're asking your merchant services to put you in a B2B SIC code so you can qualify without having to pass any additional information through. Number two, always enter a zip code on key transactions regardless of what you're using. Make sure the zip code is there. And then lastly, and this is the easy one, if it prompts you for tax, enter it. If it doesn't prompt you today, ask your merchant services provider to add that prompt to your terminal if you're terminal-based, or if you're virtual terminal, simply put it in. The more information, and the rule of thumb in merchant services is the more information provided, the better the rates. So before I continue, and Emily, I don't know if you want to jump on, if there's any questions out there, if you'd like to let us know what your questions are, we are absolutely happy to answer them if you have any.
If you have any questions, you can unmute yourself if you'd like to ask a question, and if you're on a computer, just simply hit the unmute button, and if you're dialing in from the telephone, you can simply raise your hand or put in *9 in order to ask a question if we don't have any questions. One of the things that I did want to just briefly mention, Howard, you spoke to this a little earlier about the SIC codes. We will provide a really quick PDF of a summary of the 3 tips that people can have in addition to the presentation slides. So they will have those SIC codes available for them as well.
Okay. And then last but not least, if you would like for us, and if you're in an organization that you're not currently processing with us, and you'd like us to do a consultation and quite frankly check and see how you're set up, if you're leaving money on the table, we are happy to do that. Doesn't cost anything. We're more than happy to, whether you go with us or not, our goal is to save you money. So if you'd like for us to review your statements, give you a consultation, and quite frankly see how you're set up and make sure you're effectively set up the right way, let us know. You can email Bridget at bridget.kime. She's the one that coordinates this all for us at sterlingpayment.com, and just type in the subject line webinar bonus, or you can call her directly at 888-564-9564, and she's at extension 3025.
Howard, actually, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was actually going to say there's one question. Is there a difference between B2C being B2C processing payment processors or quote unquote B2B payment processors?
And well, from processing standpoint, there is. When we talk about business to business, you said processors or processing. You're talking about the 9 companies?
Yes, the processor is a merchant service provider that would set some.
Yes. Okay. So to explain that, business to business or a B2B processor has typically more access and passes more information through on the transaction. Something that we've done, and as a B2B processor, we put in place something called interchange management, and it's managing the transactions as they flow through. A retail or B2C processor does not have that focus, typically does not have the same type of reporting. So what they're focused on are the card present transactions or transactions that are more debit and credit card based, not necessarily business card based. There's a whole different set of rules for business card processing. So if you are primarily, or if you are B2B, whether you're 50% or 20, and you're accepting those types of cards, you need to make sure we're accepting those, or you're accepting those the appropriate way and passing the appropriate information. Because if not, once again, in most cases, we've seen 20 to 30% left on the bottom line. I mean, there's money that's you're overpaying to the issuing bank if B2B transactions are not managed appropriately. And a processor that is typically retail-based doesn't have any of those systems set up, and they're not in place. So our group, we're processing well into the billions in B2B. This is all we do. So we can certainly process on the other side of our business on the B2C side, but our group is geared for and once again focused on B2B processing, and there's definitely a difference, that's for sure. Great question.
And that is it. Those are all the questions, unless someone would like to ask a question. That's it.
Okay, so one last point. You can also ask me at anything about credit card processing at askhoward@sterlingpayment.com. I want to thank everyone on the call for all their time today. Appreciate you taking 20 to 25 minutes out of your busy schedule. Hopefully this will save you a little bit of money, and if we can help in the future, please let us know. Thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic day.